Yeah, they did us right there, and we're going to get right into the ball portion of it. Red River offenses versus defenses, one side versus the other versus the other. We're going to go dive into that next here on Locked On Crossovers.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, we got Jonathan Davis, we got Jay Smith, Locked On Horns, Locked On Sooners. We got to talk ball, man. Look, Texas comes in here, number one ranked team in the country. Congratulations. I am proud of you all. You've ascended to that level, right? I like when I play up against our rivals and they're ranked that high so that we can knock them down. That's the whole goal. Our whole goal is to go and take each other out. But looking at things in a serious note, Steve Sarkisian is in the third year with his quarterback. He's got Quinn Ewers, just 3 years together, which is typically when his teams hit that completed spot. Brent Venables is now third year in with his defense and his lead guy, Danny Stutzman. Last year was, of course, an electric and fun game. Of course, we took home that beautiful gold hat. How are you feeling about the Texas offense this season as we're heading into this marquee matchup?
I feel great, right? I think, when you look at it, that Texas offense has taken, that next step this year. I think the offense has always been formidable under Steve Sarkisian, but people have always asked, when will we see that 2020 Alabama type offense, right? And I think this is the closest we've been to it. The running game, maybe not as great as we used to seeing it at the University of Texas, but they found ways to supplement it. Arch Manning taking off for 67 yards, a couple, explosive runs from the wide receiver.
That's true.
And I think the passing offense, one of the biggest reasons that Quinn Ewers came back is because he said that 25 start mark for a quarterback is when you really start to figure things out. Michael Hawkins only in start 2, but you'll talk about that. So, Quinn Ewers with his experience, I think we're really starting to see him hit on all cylinders. And it really feels like we got 5 to 6 pass catchers that we can go to at any time to just make huge plays in this offense. So I think it's really hitting on all cylinders. Of course, the big question mark is, will Quinn Ewers, the way he looked the first 2.5 weeks, he hasn't played a football game since September 14th. Will he look the exact same way that he did against, Colorado State, Michigan, and then the first couple of quarters against UTSA? Or will there be some rust, right? He is coming, off of an oblique injury. But all in all, I think through the first 5 weeks of the season, whether it's been Quinn Ewers, whether it's been Arch Manning, I think the offense has hit on all cylinders for the Texas Longhorns. And it really starts up front with that offensive line. I think kind of the biggest difference in these two teams outside of the experience at quarterback is that Texas returned 4 of 5 starters, right, on that offensive line, where Oklahoma had to replace their top 6 guys on the offensive line. And I just spoke with Pro Football Focus a minute ago, and he talked about how Texas has the number 1 graded pass blocking offensive line in the country. So that's going to help a lot in terms of, Steve Sarkisian's offense being one of the best in the country. And then the starter that we replaced, Cam Williams, right now, just talked to Pro Football Focus once again. He's projected as a first-round pick. Right? So that offensive line is playing like the best unit in the country, and then everything, just comes off of that. So really, we've seen a high-quality offense from Texas thus far. I think maybe the one question mark about the offense is how well will we be able to run the ball, right? I think, for the most part, we haven't seen the Bijan, Roshan, Jonathan Brooks type performances. I think the running backs have just been good, right? Not great, not elite. I think they've been good. And in the last game, 2 weeks ago against Mississippi State, our running back Jaden Blue got benched because he had 2 fumbles on 6 carries, right? And so how much do you trust him in this game? Do you go to Trey Wisner or Jaden Blue, who aren't as effective, naturally aren't as explosive as Jaden Blue? And then if you aren't able to run the ball against this Brent Venables defense, so much of what Steve Sarkisian wants to do comes off the run, right? Then he attacks you with the play action. Then he attacks you with the RPOs. If the Oklahoma defense can just cancel out the run game and say you can't run the ball, then how effective is Quinn on that play action, on that RPO? How effective is Steve Sarkisian's offense without the threat of the run? That may be one question mark for me, but overall, I think this Texas offense still, even with Quinn coming back, is just too much for the Oklahoma defense to handle. And I think they'll be on the field a lot because the Oklahoma offense, which I want you to talk about right now, I expect a lot of 3 and outs from them. What do you think?
So on that note, for the defense side, I totally see exactly what you're saying and that's why Texas was rated so high coming in, right? You return majority of offensive line and you got your quarterback. That honestly is the recipe for a successful offense, especially with Steve Sarkisian and what he likes to do. You got continuity from the line and the quarterback. And so, but for that defense, though, for us, we like to stop the run and we like to terrorize the pass. So what I think the thing for you all is, the question is, how much of the bending and breaking can we do to that offensive line with our not only our defensive line, but our entire front seven? Because you know that Brent Venables and Zach Alley's basically a Venables clone as DC. They love the exotic blitzes and the confusion there to force that quarterback to have to look around to the third and fourth option. The secondary is going to have to make sure they don't allow explosive plays, which that's one of the things that we do. When you're very aggressive, you are susceptible to big plays. But if that D line does get home and force them to scramble, that can help you. So that's where we're going to have to see the improvements in the defensive side. I think that's the key, and we'll talk about keys to victory in a moment. But on the offensive side, as you said, our offense going against your defense, this is basically a similar offense what you've seen throughout your entire journey this season. You haven't actually ran up against an actual elite offense yet. Congratulations, Texas. That has helped you all. But I think the one thing that's different with this offense compared to the others that you've seen is we're starting to see a week-over-week stack of actual good football from Michael Hawkins. He is a true freshman. He's going in a very hostile environment. And so the question is going to be about his composure. Is he going to be good with the check down? Is he going to be good with taking his time and launching it deep if the line gives him the blocking he needs? It's going to be all on his shoulders as far as his composure goes. The good thing for us is this is now the third week of continuity on our offensive line because we've been so injured. It sucks, man. Having 4 centers in 3 games is the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. And luckily, y'all ain't seen it. We are now getting over it because we now have our starting center and our backup center back, and we have continuity across the line. So the test for us and where I want to see is how we can hold up long enough so Michael can not only launch a pass, but he can also scramble. And I think that that's where the difference comes into what Michael Hawkins does compared to what y'all saw at Michigan with even Orji as well as Davis Warren. That they don't really scramble. Like Orji comes in to actually run the ball. Like he ain't there to break a run out. He's here to literally take the handoff and run it power somewhere. Y'all were prepared for that. You knew that they weren't going to be a threat in the pass game. I think Hawkins can change that narrative for himself by actually throwing the ball, getting rid of the ball quickly, and making it a game. So let me ask you this, though. On the defensive side, how do you feel about that defensive line? I know that bringing in Trey Moore was a big piece for you all to add to the pass rush. I love Colin Simmons, and I hope that he decides to sit out this game just to be respectful to me. I hope he appreciates me as a human being because I do like Colin Simmons a lot. He's one of my favorite. And I think that Anthony Hill has a lot of potential. I don't know if he's in the right spot yet, but I think that that's just youth, and he'll get and grow into what he wants to be. How do you feel about that pass rush going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be important. And I think it's really going to be about, gap discipline and just understanding who's your man and what's your responsibility. The good thing is, I would say that Michael Hawkins is not Jalen Milroe right now by any means, right? But I would say that that's probably a good ceiling in college football, right? You would hope that Michael Hawkins could turn into, a Jalen Milroe type player. Well, the majority of our defense, whether they were starters or not, got to look against Jalen Milroe last season when we beat Alabama, right? And so I think it's going to be the same thing, making sure that you don't allow him to get that big run, right? Or you don't fight too hard on his own read, or
yeah, that's true.
Discipline, keep contained, and make sure he doesn't take off for 40, 50 yards. And so, I think the pass rush is going to be key. Trey Moore has come over. He hasn't had a sack yet. He's been able to get pressure, but obviously, you want to get the quarterback on the ground and, push him back a little bit. So I think that's going to be interesting, a matchup that I think the Texas defensive line should win. But, we've talked about how it's Red River. Your offensive line may play the game of their life, right? And if they can't get a quarterback like Michael Hawkins on the ground, maybe he can do something special back there. So that's something, that's going to be key to watch. But I do like our defensive line in that matchup. And I think, Colin Simmons, I don't like using the word generational prospect because we've heard it so much. It's such a buzzword now. But I mean, the fact that he's just come in straight from high school and it looks like he's still playing at Duncanville. I mean, the game has just slowed down for him so much. I expect him to have a big imprint on this game. I expect Texas actually to blitz a little bit more than we're used to seeing, right? Put some pressure on the young quarterback. And then I think you're going to have to, in terms of the passing game, obviously limit the big plays because, if you want to force this Oklahoma offense to be, efficient and try to drive down the field 70 to 80 yards, which I don't think they can do consistently enough to beat Texas. But I just talked to Pro Football Focus, and he said that out of the 15 passes, I believe that Michael Hawkins threw last week, 8 of them are screens, right? So if you can, I think that's what you're going to see a lot of this week too, just because he's a young quarterback, right? And you're not going to trust him to just throw it all over the yard yet. So I think just sound tackling, gap discipline, keeping, Michael Hawkins in the pocket and forcing him to beat you with his arm, I think is going to be the key for the Texas defense. And I'm not sure how much we'll find out about the Texas defense this weekend, because I think kind of the question mark right now is, okay, they're top 3 in scoring defense. They're top 3 in yards allowed, but who have they played? Have they played an offense with a pulse yet? But then my argument is, does the Oklahoma offense have a pulse? Right. So
right. That's fair. That's very fair. That's very
I guess
fair.
we'll figure that out on Saturday. But, I do like the matchup in terms of the Texas defense versus the Oklahoma offense. I do think, like you said, just the atmosphere of the game and, with him being a dual threat quarterback, he could present some challenges that they haven't necessarily seen this year. But like I said, the experience coming off of what they faced, with Jalen Milroe last year, and just the fact that still at this point, right, his strength is not throwing the ball down the field and getting those chunk plays. I do think the Texas defense has the advantage against that Oklahoma offense.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point. So Texas has seen it with Milroe. Maybe Oklahoma could try to duplicate that with a little bit more passes down the field. I don't know. But we're going to talk keys to victory as well as a score prediction here on this Locked On crossover moment for the Red River Shootout.